Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. I say that because I don't have like I don't have an age restriction for the podcast.
Right.
Welcome to the Ed Namrok podcast for Friday, February 15th, 2019, post Valentine's Day. If you're a fan, Kiyan.
Yeah, big day of love.
Thank you for coming on.
Of course, man. Happy to be here. Happy to finally be here.
Kiyan is a former student of mine. Everyone, cat's out of the bag. I've worked at SAE since May 2016. He is... Did you win the Entrepreneur Award? Entrepreneur. I said entrepreneur. Wow.
The valedictorian.
The valedictorian award.
Actually, I don't know about that. I was hoping, maybe like today, maybe I could find out about that.
I'm trying to think.
Because I feel like I pretty much killed it.
Yeah.
As far as my class went.
Exactly. Because you were part of that October graduating class.
Yeah.
I believe the graduation ceremony for you and the other classes is coming up in March.
Yeah, I got a call about that yesterday from Val.
I wouldn't doubt. I mean, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Actually, not even spoiler. It's more like a...
announcement.
More of a, what do they call it? What does Paul Heyman say? That's not a spoiler. That's a prediction. Oh, no, that's not a spoiler. I forgot. I'm trying to butcher Paul Heyman, but nonetheless, thanks for coming on.
Of course.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to be here.
The one unique thing that I want, well, for those watching, of course, you can see Kiyan. You can see me with my Dodger gear. They're like, oh, you're not wearing Patriot stuff today? No, I'm not. Okay. Football season's over.
Yeah.
Basketball season. I have to specify with Kiyan because he comes from
the football season is still going
which
on.
is football.
Yeah. What the rest of the world calls it.
Yeah. So Kiyan was an interesting find for me. And I say find because most of the students I would get are American. They're born here. Mm-hmm. Some of them born here, raised in other countries and came back. He is from Pakistan.
Yeah.
And it's a city of Karachi?
Lahore.
When did you first come here?
So this time around, I came August 2017, pretty much with the intention of going to SAE.
Mm-hmm. You already had it.
I already had it mapped out. Like I would have liked to go a little earlier. Like in 2015, I came to America and I went to the SAE in Chicago.
Okay.
And I really liked it. I really liked the city. It was a bit cold.
Very cold.
But like at the time of like the prospect of like, like student loans and finding a place, getting a job, it all seemed like a little daunting. And I felt like I maybe needed to go back and do more in my field, more in the audio and music field back home. And then come here with something. So a few years later, like that, I felt pretty comfortable. I'd done some big projects and stuff that ended up on TV. And
yeah, you showed me. You did some pretty...
Yeah.
I wouldn't say super significant stuff, but it was pretty mainstream from what I can tell.
And then, I just felt like the music industry was kind of lacking what I needed from it in terms of money, in terms of numbers, and just the level was a lot different.
Which is interesting because for someone that comes from a different country, you saw it firsthand.
Right.
You saw exactly what a lot of us saw, what was already transforming in the music industry, and you saw it without even being immersed in it yet. Kudos to you. You're smart. You're very smart. Yeah.
I came with a plan.
Yeah.
And then, so I stayed up in a small town in California, Madera, where my aunt and uncle live, and I just relaxed there for a bit, lived that California, very California farm life. And I was coming and going to LA, getting all my stuff sorted to start going out in school. I believe that's where we met one time.
You came on a tour, if I remember.
No, I think I took that aptitude test or something in the beginning. I think I took it with you.
Yes, the Wonderlic.
Yeah, the Wonderlic. Yeah,
you scored pretty high on it too. Yeah. It was like a 29,
something like that,
almost a 30,
something like that. I got it on the first time. So I started, then I moved to LA 1st of January 2018. Actually, my living situation was a little interesting in the beginning was as well. I lived in an artist community called Upstart.
I remember this, yes.
So right as I got to LA, I ended up living with a bunch of musicians, comedians, actors, models.
That must have been very
filmmakers. And it was almost like being like a college lifestyle, but more real world, you know, like more Big Brother.
Wow.
You know, people were everyone kind of wanted the same. We all had different fields, but everyone who wanted the same thing was
Would
to
you
be
say it's a big pissing contest amongst each other?
Surprisingly not. Like, people were happy to collaborate.
Yeah.
And it wasn't too many egos, because like it was a lot of people starting out, right? Like people who moved to LA. Like, I moved from another country, and there are a few people who had moved from other countries, but it was mostly people from around here, from California or states close by,
right,
where they just drove here and figured it's a cheap place to stay for a few months while they try to figure out what they want to do in the entertainment industry. So I'd say it was more of that. Sometimes it felt like people were just there to be there, but a lot of people were on their grind, as they say. Some of my friends have had great success. My friend, comedian Aaron McCann, he was recently. You might have heard. I've heard about him because he did like a spoof video off of Joe Rogan's podcast, where he made fun of his accent. And then Joe Rogan responded to him. It became a whole thing. A bunch of people like Coach Kavanagh responded to him, like a lot of. So he got some clout in Ireland, and now he's doing well. He was on Kill Tony's podcast recently.
Yes, he was.
So people like that, you know, it was cool to be like, those are the sort of people that motivated me, where I was like, all right, this is worth staying in and making connections. And I ended up bringing a lot of people to the school, a lot of musicians, a lot of singers, rappers, and, you know, it was a place where I had studio time. So initially, like, as soon as I got here, I felt like I had already started getting some clients. And then as school went on, you know, I met a lot of people. Shout out Dash, Kevin, Whiteside,
absolutely,
Edgar, obviously. People who have helped me kind of like now to be where I'm at. I've been interning at a major studio, which has been great.
Nightbird.
Nightbird. Shout out Nightbird. And, you know, just kind of just seeing the levels that people work at, whether it's the clients who are coming in or the engineers who are there. And it's just like, you know, it keeps me motivated.
That's awesome. One of the questions I wanted to ask you is, when you first came here and started immersing yourself in this whole scene that we're in, what was your first impression of people here coming from Pakistan?
I felt like I was meeting a lot of people who were distracted by a lot of things in LA, where it was like they wanted to be famous more than they wanted to be good at their craft.
Correct.
So I met a lot of people who were like, okay, cool, I'm a filmmaker. And then you meet them a few weeks later and it's like they're already on to the next thing. And which is cool, like people have multiple talents, but I feel like a lot of people were chasing the dream, and they just wanted to get to that point of being rich and famous, and they didn't care how.
Right.
But as I went on, like that impression changed, and I see that this is a city full of people with multiple talents, and like, you know, like people are doing something completely different during the day. As to what they might be doing on weekends, at nights, and depending on who they're with. So that has been really cool to see that in a city that, you know, you can find whatever you like. There's areas that are dedicated. Like if you go to Melrose and Fairfax, it's all hip hop stuff. And if you go kind of where I'm living at in Silverwick, as we were discussing, it's more like artsy and, you know, like open mics and coffee shops that you can just hang out at. And it's like a lot of places have their own vibe, which is really cool. I think I really dig that.
So distracted, that's interesting.
Distracted though,
because I completely agree. Me being born and raised here, it's funny you should mention that, because I single-handedly see that more so now with the younger generation of, I want to say not just artists, but people who want to get into quote unquote creative media,
right,
broadcasting, anything having to do with being a face. And they want to be a face. I don't know if you noticed this, but they want to be a face and eventually they have a change of heart. And because of, wait a minute, it takes a lot of work to be a face in the industry. Let me be in the background. And they realize being in the background is almost double work.
Yeah.
So it's funny you should mention that, because
and that's kind of like our field of, audio engineering and music production, where you might be chilling with the stars, with the face of the operation, but you'll be there.
Yeah.
You'll be in the background. You'll be in the studio with them. You'll be there backstage.
Especially with musicians, because we are responsible for making them sound as optimal as possible.
Right.
It's our responsibility to
and
do
it's a very intimate environment. And like the one thing that I've learned that will trump skill in this field is trust.
Yes.
If your homie trusts you with their sound and their music or whatever vibe you're putting out, then it doesn't matter if the next person is the best engineer in the world, or they know all the shortcuts, or they have all the plugins, or what matters is that, I've been in situations where I've been assisting engineers and thinking, man, this guy doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
But the artist trusts them.
Yes.
And, then you're not in a position to say anything. And going back to the background thing where you're just sort of there.
What's interesting about that is a lot of people get ahead that way. Everyone thinks there's some kind of magic formula to succeeding in this industry. A lot of it is just vibing.
Yeah.
Showing face, showing up.
Showing up, being there when, it's so funny. I was reading this book every day while I started at SAE about this engineer who was an intern and got his first chance because the head engineer wasn't there. Nobody was there. So the studio manager's like, all right, you're going to have to do whatever the client says. And it was some big band. I think it was the Eagles. And that guy ended up recording a track off the Eagles album that was working. He got credited and everything, and they started working with him in the future. And that kind of happened for me as well.
Yeah.
Where one morning it was me and the studio supervisor. And this artist, she wasn't from around here. So she ended up at the studio like 2 hours earlier than when she needed to be, just because she didn't want to get lost or be late or anything like that. And he was like, well, technically you're the engineer on staff right now, even though I was still an intern. So he's like, going with the room with her, set her up, whatever she needs. So I just like kind of opened up the session and like made a loop for her to sing. And the engineer, the engineer came in, and that kind of like, this was before Christmas, and that kind of like got the ball rolling from me taking up a little more responsibility to the engineers, kind of, trusting me with some stuff. I feel like now I'm close to where I want to be.
Key word, trust. And I can't stress that enough, because I don't know how many situations people have gotten into.
Yeah.
Some you may know that they have been trusted with something and they completely drop the ball. And it's tough to recover from that.
Yeah,
it's very tough.
Especially if it's in front of the client, like maybe in like safe environments like school, or if it's just you and your boys recording, and like something goes wrong, the take doesn't end up right, or you lose the session or something like that. Like, it might not be the end of the world, but that trust is going to go.
Yeah, definitely. The school is a training ground. It's built for you to practice. It's built for you to make mistakes. We have our own version of quote unquote sparring here, which is sessions. People don't understand that you have to make the mistakes here so you won't make them out of here.
Right.
A lot of new people that have somewhat had some experience out independently come in here, and pretty much sometimes they have to unlearn everything they've learned because of that reason. And what I've noticed with you is you would bring in repeatedly just people that you wanted to get practice and you wanted to get reps, which I applaud you for that because that is paying off.
Right.
And
just that experience, like knowing what artists, whatever, whether you're an amateur or somebody who has, Billboard hits or something like that, they're the same pretty much. Exactly. They get better as well. So like obviously a top tier artist will know things and how they expect things to be done, and they don't. You can't fool them. You can't be like, this is the way how I do it. They know it can be done a certain way and they want it done that way.
Definitely.
But working with people that were at my level, I could make those mistakes and see like, all right, things that come up often. People want it a certain way, no matter what you do, no matter how professional you are, they're gonna do it their way. So just like a lot of adapting.
Keyword, adapting. Now, this is just a little blurb I want to say about not your class, not your class in particular, but other classes before that. The one problem that I consistently see, not just in this industry, but in this craft, is everybody wants to have the same quality of outcome, which is not.
Oh no!
realistic.
Yeah, I mean, your budgets and everything, like that, like the sort of room you're recording in, the sort of mic you're using, to your computer, to your plugins, and obviously skill level as well. People want to sound like they'll come like, hey, this is what I want to sound like, and they're not realizing that it takes certain steps to get to that point.
Definitely.
Even if it is just the equipment, you could put the greatest engineer on a bedroom setup, and it's going to sound like a bedroom. He cannot make it sound amazing, even though a lot of people claim that I just used a USB microphone in my kitchen and it sounded amazing. That's true. It does sound amazing, but you hear the difference. You put on Dua Lipa record or something like that, you're going to hear that difference. It's not going to be the same.
And I make reference to microphones, to types of camera lenses.
For sure. And screens. And the better the screen, the better the picture.
You know what I noticed? That photography is almost a mirror image of audio. It's just visual.
Right.
So a lot of people think I'm crazy, but like, no, you got to see it this way. The lens, I mean, I could break down the science. It's kind of boring, but the lens are the microphones.
Right.
The better you capture it, you don't have to do so much editing and correcting. You add, you supplement, you complement what you've already captured. Right. That's what I mean by the relevance between the two.
It's a perfect analogy, and something that I've also learned to appreciate in the audio field is the room. Yes. I feel like the room is key. You could have the most basic microphone, but if you have a nice treated room to record in and there's not a lot of noise coming from outside, then you can go hard on the preamp and almost like kind of make it sound like it was recorded with a great microphone. But if you turn up the gain in your bedroom and you can hear your neighbors cooking downstairs and you hear birds chirping and police sirens like that, all that stuff is going to be in there. When you add delays, all those little ticks and clicks are going to be in there.
It's so, I want to say it's so simplistically complicated that it takes a well-trained individual like yourself and myself to know, to assess the situation that you're going to be in. Right. Kind of like a photographer. The lighting.
They'll know what tool to use when.
Oh, the depth of field, all that stuff. The aperture, the ISO. It's
lighting, how to take pictures in clubs versus how to take pictures at the beach. Like it's not one size fit all.
Oh yeah. And shout out to photographers. You guys
for sure.
You guys have my
I feel like Instagram has taken a lot away from photographers in that like now iPhones and Instagram can give you a pretty cool picture.
Kind of like what the FL Studio,
right? Kind of like FL Studio and Auto Tune and all these interfaces, trying to make it easier and smaller and faster for anybody to do it. And I feel like we'll reach a point with that with music as well, where you'll just be able to sing into your iPhone. It'll pitch correct it. It'll quantize it, and it'll put like a little basic mix on it.
That's the whole automation thing I went on a rant about, because
I saw that.
it's coming. We really can't do anything to stop it. Will the revolution be televised is the only thing I'm worried about. But it's funny because I was listening to Andrew Yang, who's running for president of the United States. He was on Joe Rogan's podcast.
He seems a little young.
I believe he's a little past 40.
So you can add anything past 40, right? Yeah.
So
even though that's a weird thing, like what is 40? Like I get it, 21 is a number that, okay, you're an adult now and you have certain responsibilities. But what is 40? Like,
I don't know.
That's a weird
I'm 2 years away.
Okay.
And I still feel that I still have a lot of growing to do. That's one thing I'm grateful for my generation. Well, I can speak for a lot of people. I'm grateful for that type of mentality that we basically own.
Right.
Because
you've
never
seen a simpler,
growing. Never.
You've seen, I feel like you guys have seen the development a lot faster than we have.
Big time. I still know how to program a VCR.
Right.
I'm old enough to remember analog technology, and I guess I could say I'm young enough because of the baby boomers. I'm young enough to know how to open a PDF, what software is needed to capture audio correctly, what is a Wi-Fi router, internet router,
right? Like
that type of stuff. Right. A lot of people don't know that.
The other day at the studio, we came across an old CPU keyboard and mouse, and they had the old connectors, those old 5-point connectors for the keyboard and the mouse. And one of the other interns, who was a younger guy, he didn't even know what it was. Like, he was like, I don't even know what type of connector this is because I've never seen it. Even though he's a pretty good engineer.
Mouse used to have that too.
Yeah,
I remember
keyboard
that.
and mouse before USB. So
wow, that is crazy. That is interesting. Yeah. Same thing with Pro Tools. I remember when I first owned a copy of Pro Tools 7.4, they introduced elastic audio in that version.
That was probably the big thing then.
Yeah. And I was like, you can do what to audio? And before you know it, I was making drummers sound like they can play to a click, locked in like a robot.
Kind of that's probably what started the whole remixing thing as well, where you could just take a sample and...
Yeah. I don't know if you know this, but have you ever heard of Linkin Park's first album?
Yeah,
Hybrid Theory?
Probably, yeah.
Do you know the song Points of Authority?
Not by memory, but I remember the album.
He meaning Mike Shinoda, who's the brains of the operation most of the time. I remember reading an article that guitar riff is not actually played physically. He cut it in Pro Tools.
Just single notes.
Back in 1999. Okay, he was using Pro Tools that long ago.
And that accurately.
Yeah, he was, I think, an AI guy. He was in creative media and mastered Pro Tools. So I can only imagine the editing done back then.
Right.
19 years ago. It must have been everything in slip mode, and you just have to manually just move everything and make sure it sequences correctly. It was very tedious.
I'm sure.
It wasn't as
I hope he was paid appropriately.
Oh man, believe me, he's a black belt, which is
now we're at that point where you have stuff like scale quantize and record quantize and Logic, where you can't even go wrong.
No,
like these days, like I'm writing bass lines, like all right, I'll go scale quantize,
and they'll do it for you. Yeah,
and you click, on the first step, you make your note, and then you click anywhere else. If it's not in the same key as with your first note, it'll correct it, and then you can just like draw in 4 notes, 4 bars, 1 bar, 2 bars, whatever. Draw your notes in, and then just move notes around until it sounds like something.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that with MIDI drum notes.
Yeah.
Where I actually physically played them on the drum, on the electronic drum kit, and it was easy to snap into a grid value. It was like, whoa. Like, you
can't even go wrong. No. Like, you could almost like perform if you had something like an Ableton Push and you had record quantize and skill quantize on.
I see that a lot with the EDM guys.
Yeah, EDM guys, there's like really no, like, you can't go wrong with it.
No,
you know, it is baby proof.
But I think it's, as a result, a lot of the music is becoming monotonous. And it's very difficult to tell apart, which is sad because I have to dig in, find out who the artist is, and I'm like, I don't want to tell this artist that it sounds like someone I know.
Right.
And
because a lot of the times they, you know, like there's only so much music out there, I feel, especially when especially with like EDM and house and techno, where everything is on the grid and like people are using similar samples and similar presets and VST synths and a lot of the same gear, a lot of the same tricks.
Actually, all of the same tricks. There's really no new ones, except for the combination of any kind of outboard gear mixed with a hybrid in the box.
So I guess with stuff like that would just be your arrangement and your sound. You know, the sounds you're using. Like I feel like I have heard the same song.
Oh, definitely,
plenty of times.
Because you can hear, with us engineers, audio engineers, you can totally tell from a movie, those sound effects, and then a song, you're like, okay, wait a minute. There's a direct correlation between the two. Either they're using the same software or the same library.
Then does it become an issue of copywriting and like intellectual property? Like who's to say that I wrote the same kick, clap, click, clap as the next guy? Like, you know, who's to say?
It's funny because percussion beats have never been a big, sequences of percussion patterns have never been a big proponent of copyright and mechanical and sync licenses because they all kind of sound the same.
So it's melody always.
Yeah, melody has always been, as long as I've been around in the music industry, and I'm going on 20 years. I've always known that about melodies. Melodies are like a big deal.
And what about lyrics?
Lyrics too, but
like
there's a gray area with lyrics.
Right, like I'm sure how many times have you know rappers used the same line about,
because it happens with stand-up comedians as well.
I'm sure.
Sometimes besides, you know, being a joke stealer, which is fucked up, people will unintentionally write the same type of bit as another comedian that's out there. And then that's where you have to be civil about it. Either you go up to bat for it and lose, or you say, hey, no problem, I'll change it. That's kind of an ego thing. And you already know about egos in this industry. And that alone is not going to change. As long as I've been around, it's gotten worse. Because now with the birth of the home studio, egos have been massively magnified because they have everything at their disposal and they're the big shot now because they have all the equipment and software. And producers are more important now, so more than anything. And the thing with producers is what people don't seem to understand. They are basically okay. Let's jump into the MMA metaphor here.
Always.
Yeah, always a great understand it because we'll get to that in a second. You have the fighter, which is the performer. Right. It's not the fighter can only learn so much on its own, on his or her own. It takes a coach, a producer, a person that's gonna fucking make it tight, make it a fine honed fucking killing machine with delegation, with trust, with knowledge, with respect, and with a lot of fun. Everyone forgets that key element, fun. Yeah. because everyone's so goddamn serious now, which drives me nuts.
I've become very serious. It's almost like I'm scared to have fun because there's so many possibilities.
You've seen that, and I mean, living in the artist community,
right?
It's
too much fun sometimes.
Yeah, it's so fucking all over the place that you don't know when it's supposed to be fun. There's got to be a fun element to it. That's what a producer does. Mm-hmm. It makes everything. I don't even know what word to choose. I want to say productive. I want to say elaborate. I want to say.
But just coaches them, like
profitable. Yeah. There's a lot of words I can use, but that person's responsible for
the taste making part of it as well. Pretty much.
Yeah. They're trying to make their own recipes, but they don't know. They don't have the input. They don't have the feedback. They don't have the constructive criticism. They don't know when to.
And going back to the trust thing, like if the artist trusts the producer, then the same melody that somebody else might have wrote or the same beat that somebody else might have made doesn't matter because that producer or your coach that you trust is giving you that.
Oh, definitely. I've been seeing it a lot more now with young rappers because I hate to say this, and I hope it gets better. A lot of these young rappers have a big chip on their shoulder for no apparent reason. They're trying too hard to compete with what's out there already, which is not what you're supposed to do.
I feel like that's because like hip hop is also very mainstream fashion right now.
It is. Which is sad because, I mean, you can turn it into a business all you want.
Right.
Which is what people want to do. But let's not forget the element of what it's supposed to be. And that's a music business. It's taking
it's not just the music that's part of the business. It is the fashion and it is the culture. And it is like if I hear some rapper talking about his lifestyle, I'm going to want that.
Yeah, and
so that's what they're selling, I feel like, and that's where the pressure probably comes from.
And it to me, I mean, being born and raised here and growing up in the gangster rap era and stuff like that, I knew the mistakes that were made back in the 90s. People were trying the exact same thing. Now it's come full circle. It's all over again. Yeah. It's like, okay, I see where this is going.
It's cyclical.
Yeah, and I see the old school heads that I grew up with too saying the exact same shit, that these kids don't know what real hip hop is, and I'm like, well, you remember they were telling us the same shit back in the 90s. Same thing with
it's always the generation before thinks that the next one doesn't know what they're doing, but it's just a small transitional period, then you would take over.
It's true, man. And I want to jump subject here real quick because I've been also meaning to ask you. And this is probably more common in Pakistan than it is here in the U.S. But where did your obsession for mixed martial arts come from? Because you were one of the first ones that I talked to about. Right. Kiyan.
I would say it started with just the obsession of watching people fight.
Yes. Did you see a lot of fights in Pakistan?
Yeah, like because there was a period of time which I guess would be middle school, kind of, where it was just all boys, and that was very very common for even the same school system to have a girls' branch and a boys' branch. Sometimes they were kind of in the same area. Sometimes they weren't. Sometimes they're solely dedicated all girls schools and all boys schools, even from like the first day till you graduate high school. So you can imagine like 12, 13-year-old boys, there's not much to do except fight. So our only entertainment would be if like, oh, those two guys have a little bit of beef. Let's see if we can get a fight out. Let's see if we can like poke the bear a little bit and get a fight. And sometimes it would start a chain reaction where two guys are fighting, then somebody else's problems or like the two people who were trying to stop the fight end up fighting. And then obviously like a lot of WWE. Like it was always that thing like to see two people compete and there's a winner and there's a loser. And it's weird with MMA. I guess it was kind of around the time where Brock Lesnar went to the UFC.
Oh, when he fought Frank Mir for the first time.
There were some signs given to me and my friends by like Entourage, the show. I know they're big fans of the UFC and the whole Ari Emanuel thing. Like they almost like have had their part in the UFC's fame as well. But like I guess I was aware of what Chuck Liddell was, but I wasn't aware of MMA at the time.
Wow, really?
Yeah, it was more like, okay, there's this guy who's a cage fighter. Okay, that pretty much it started and ended right there. But Brock Lesnar going and getting his ass kicked, kind of like, that's where it was like, oh, okay, you need to have these skills to fight. And like then you see people like Anderson Silva and John Jones.
You came in pretty
late.
Well, I mean, granted, your age.
Yeah.
You're what, 22?
27.
27?
Yeah.
Wow.
I know, I look young. The John Jones Gustafson fight, which was like the cover of the UFC game as well. And
probably one of my all-time favorite fights.
Right.
Yeah.
So that kind of, then my friends and I just would play the more than watching, I would say, the UFC in the beginning. We were playing the video game more than anything else. And that's when like, all right, like, you know, the guy you play in the video game with is fighting. And you hear about it. And I guess where it really, really hit home was Ronda. Like Ronda.
A lot of people who are new to it is the one. Yeah. That's the one fighter that was
Ronda. And like, I am completely part of the Ronda wave because she was the first person that I gave a shit about, you know, where it was like, okay, I want to see her win, and I don't want to see. I was like the whole fan thing. Like I don't want to see her lose.
Like when she lost to Holly,
that was heartbreaking. You know, it wasn't just a fight. It was like, okay, wow, this superhero just got defeated or something like that. You know, and I'm a big fan of Conor, obviously, because like it's like a lot of people hate on him because like there's this thing with MMA fans like, oh, I'm a purist, or they practice some form of martial arts, so they think they know more. But to me, it is about the entertainment,
right?
You know, and that's why I'm such a big fan of Conor McGregor, because like the guy who's fighting on his undercard may be a great fighter and may beat him someday as well. Yeah. But as just a fan of the sport, I don't care. Yeah. I'm not emotionally invested in his story. I don't watch when he comes on Ariel Hawani's podcast, or I don't care about his content. I'll watch the fight. Yeah. But I'm not like emotionally invested the way I am with Conor, where once his fight is announced, from that moment till a few months after the fights, you know, you're emotionally invested. Every bit of news is relevant to the fight itself.
Oh, definitely.
And that's I think nobody else, not even Ronda probably had that.
I remember being seriously emotionally invested when they announced that he was going to box Floyd Mayweather.
Right. That was it was like a dream, and like even boxing was part of the journey of me becoming interested in fights, and the Floyd Pacquiao fight. Yeah. Where it was crazy from the time I watched the Floyd Pacquiao fight to maybe, I think it was within 6 months or so that the Aldo Conor thing started happening. Yeah. So it was almost like, even though like even Conor, I think, mentioned something like he called out Floyd on like Jimmy Kimmel or something like that, where he said,
I think I remember
where he was like, I would fight Floyd and I would beat him in a second or something like that.
This is during the middle of his featherweight, I think.
Rise. This was when kind of like the Aldo buildup had started. It was after Poirier. He had called his shot, like he was the big guy, right?
Very fucking fascinating.
And to see that from like the Floyd fight to Conor become something, and then his next fight being with Conor. Yeah. It was like, you know, something like, I think that for me is probably like the biggest fight ever, because of just like one guy from a different sport going and fighting, and
that was
two
bigger
people
than
that,
him and Nate.
Yeah, two people that famous, you know, going at it. Like that's something that like even generations later, people I think will still be talking about, and movie references will be made, and songs will be written, all that kind of stuff. You know.
Yeah, well, you know what's funny is how you're late. A little, not I was gonna say late to it, but you came later. And I'm reflecting on the first time I caught on, because I was also a devout
how did you? Because you're from around here, and there's a big culture over here, right?
Well, the big culture in our neighborhood in East LA was boxing, and Oscar De La Hoya was maybe like 300 feet away from where I used to live. I'm still good friends with his sister, Cecilia, and of course her husband Esteban. But I remember as a young kid watching him, I knew how much sacrifice and dedication it would take to make it in that type of sport. Because I was playing football, American football. But American football is a team sport. Everyone has to individually work on themselves to contribute to the team.
Right.
Boxing, however, it's you.
You're in there, you know.
So watching him, I remember my mom telling me, "Oh, there goes the crazy guy running at night with the hoodie," and I'd peek out the window and it's him. Yeah, it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. He'd go.
He'd be training,
and before him, he was just my hero growing up as a kid. Him and Julio Cesar Chavez, and Mike Tyson, Riddick Bowe, Buster Douglas. Eventually, I bought his video game after he knocked out Tyson. Evander Holyfield. And then came around 93, 94. There was a public access channel, a Mexican public access channel. I forgot what it was. But they showed a cage. This is around 93, 94. There was a cage. And if I remember correctly, they showed the replay of UFC 1. And it was Hoist against Ken Shamrock.
The legendary fight.
My first thought of that, I'm like, this is real fighting.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Yeah. Okay, let's see what this is all about.
Bare knuckles, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Ken is going to murder this guy.
Because he just looks so much bigger.
I'm like, holy shit, this is a mismatch. Then I watched the transition of the fight, and I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, I thought he was doing judo at first because he had the gi on. And shout out to Tenri in Boyle Heights, because that's where I used to go and train with my buddy PJ, rest in peace. He passed away 2 years ago. And then I see him do, I think what it was, he pulled guard, which is odd. I'm like, why would you want to pull him on top of you? Then I discovered, wait a minute, he's doing Jiu-jitsu. And I thought it was Japanese jiu-jitsu. Because there's a big difference.
I think a lot of the martial arts were associated with the Asian martial arts. So whereas like jiu-jitsu probably wasn't from there.
Yeah.
But the concept of being a black belt and stuff like that was very, very Asian.
Definitely. Yeah. And then I later hear long story short, we know how it ended. Horse won the fight. And then I hear he's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt. I'm like, Brazilian jiu-jitsu? I'm like, that's new to me. So I go on, I keep watching. I watched the, I think it was Dan Severn against, I want to say Tank Abbott. I don't remember correctly. One of those two. It was either Tank Abbott. Tank Abbott was another one I grew up watching.
Yeah, I feel like that guy. I'd seen him in like other movies and shows. Like he'd make a little appearances.
And Mark Coleman. Then Randy Couture was my first real introduction to a person that not only was big, was agile, but wrestled. And because I was into wrestling too, not only pro wrestling, but amateur wrestling. Once I got into high school, of course, you had two choices. Either play football, then after football, you either join wrestling or you join track and field. I was being looked at by different colleges. They didn't want me to lose the size that I had at the time, so they completely discouraged me from going to wrestling because you would have to cut weight. And I was already thin as can be. And it kind of sucked because I wanted to wrestle.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I had an obligation to my college biddings, whatever you want to call it. But during those years, I was obsessed with mixed martial arts. That's when I got to know Vitor. That's when I got to know Tito. That's when I got to know, what was his name? Passed away in the desert due to dehydration. Was Evan Tanner. I got to know him. This is way back.
Okay.
Of course, Randy was still my guy too. Chuck Liddell came later.
Yeah.
I saw his epic fight with Vitor Belfort on that Best Damn Sports show. And that was one of Joe Rogan went on to say that was his first color commentary fight. Because I remember because he wouldn't call him Chuck Liddell. He would call him Chuck Liddell.
So he didn't even know how to say the name.
Yeah, which is funny.
Yeah.
And then I discovered Pride Fighting.
Okay.
Pride FC. That single-handedly.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I need to go find a jiu-jitsu gym, a dojo.
And learn how to do this.
Well, Jean-Jacques Machado was in Pasadena. It was a small area. Now it's huge. I haven't gone there in a long time. But when I got into audio and played in a band, I noticed that when I would roll, it would fuck up my ears and I would get tinnitus. So I had to stop doing it. So that kind of bummed me out. But I kept being a fan of it. I respected the art. But the person that really, I'm like, fuck, I want to be like that guy.
Yeah.
Was Fedor. When I saw Fedor for the first time, I was like, oh, I want to be like that guy. And he was terrifying.
He's still fighting. Can you believe that?
Absolutely terrifying. Yeah. I did not know what to even make of that guy. He had a dad body. He looked normal.
Regular guy.
But the guy had the core strength of a bull. So that's how I started. And then I started keeping all the FCs from my all-time favorite fighter in UFC history, bar none, has been Cain Velasquez.
And speaking of Cain, he's back now.
He's back Sunday.
The last time he fought was Travis Brown.
Yeah, and when he gave him the spinning roundhouse kick in the
spinning wheel kick, it was UFC 200.
Yeah, that's the same card that John Jones had to be pulled out of for testing positive, and that's when
because I remember it was the yellow mat.
Yeah.
So from his last fight, it was
Misha Tate got her nose broken by Amanda. Man, Jose Aldo beat Frankie.
It was crazy. That card. First, it was going to be John Jones. No, first it was going to be Conor and Nate the rematch. Yeah. Then Conor said that he needed more time. Yeah. Because it was from 196 to 200. That was what, 2 months away, 3 months away. So it was too soon. He needed time to prepare and 202 heal up.
Was the card though. I never forgot that one.
And then John Jones in DC got announced. That got pulled super last minute. Yeah. And then Anderson Silva in DC ended up fighting.
Which wound up being a one-sided fight.
I don't think that should have even happened. That was just...
I knew DC was going to be him.
Yeah. It was
he outweighed him first and foremost.
By a lot.
Yeah, it was like 11 pounds almost. And then I was hearing the drama behind Brock Lesnar and Mark Hunt. Mm-hmm. And I thought for sure, I'm like, Mark Hunt's going to knock his ass out.
You know what? That's what I thought right up until kind of the middle of the second round. Yeah. Where I was like, Mark Hunt really doesn't have much to offer up in terms of getting up when Brock Lesnar was holding him down.
It's terrifying too because you get a juiced up monster like that. Of course, it's going to be hard.
Exceptions were made that day.
Yeah, which is interesting too. But I remember that press conference. Brock Lesnar was asked about Cain, the person who took his belt to begin with, and pretty much finished his reign. Right. And
pretty much exposed him, I would say.
Yeah. And Brock said, oh, he looked great. He always looks great. He has nothing else to say about Cain because I remember that fight with Cain Velasquez. Cain beat the lights out of him. Yeah. He popped back up. He stuffed maybe 2 or 3 takedowns. And then he lost. Once Brock lost his balance, that was it. He screamed in for the kill. I was like, oh, I'm like, he's done. And I remember watching the Shane Carwin Brock fight, I remember Shane Carwin pretty much gassing himself out with punches. He punched himself out. And I'm like, okay, Brock's going to recover from that, and he's going to do something. He's either going to submit him or he's going to ground and pound him out. And lo and behold, it happened. I think he got him in a Darce choke. But then Kane was in a similar situation with him, and he was picking his shots.
Yeah.
And one maneuver, when he was he was on top, one thing he did that I knew, I'm like, oh shit, that has to hurt Brock because of his surgery.
Yeah.
He had a knee to the belly. And that's
that
where
the fight.
Brock has
that
had
changed the fight. Yeah.
Well, I think almost.
It was the same with Alistair Overeem.
Yeah.
It was the same with Cain Velasquez. But now with Ngannou, I feel like it is an easy fight for Cain Velasquez. Like it's probably the best fight for Cain Velasquez, borrowing maybe Alistair Overeem and some of the other like older guys that I don't think they need to fight in. Like, did Alistair Overeem and Cain Velasquez ever fight?
No, they haven't.
I mean, that's a fight that could happen.
Even though I think Cain would either take him, if it's a 3-round fight, he'll take him 3.
Yeah.
Beat the shit out of him.
Yeah.
He'll take him 5 as well, but I don't even think it'll go 5. But I think Alistair and Cain is a very, very bad matchup for Overeem.
Mm-hmm. No doubt.
I love Overeem. I used to love the guy.
Yeah, but now, given like where they are now, I think that would be in his
after
favor,
seeing Overeem fight Stipe, I'm like, okay, he won't do well against a wrestler again.
You know what's funny? Like, I was watching a highlight reel of Cain Velasquez last night.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of like he has similar movements to Khabib.
He does,
in the way that they throw that right hook.
Yeah,
like how they crouch down and throw that, and
like they're around each other a lot,
more so than DC and Khabib.
Yeah,
and DC and Cain Velasquez, I would say like Khabib and Cain have a similarity in style.
And speaking of Khabib, I wouldn't even want to see him fight Conor again right now. I just don't. No, he shouldn't. Away.
I don't think. See, now Conor is in a nice place where, he can go, and if he really wants it, I think he can fight Khabib again. Just based off the kind of the weird controversy at the end of the fight, people will still want to see it because there's still some beef. But I think like Khabib beat him, and he should enjoy being Conor McGregor and just fight some guys.
Yeah, I want to see him against Cowboy.
That's another bad fight for Conor, I think.
You think so?
Yeah, like again, just because of like the size and power element. Like,
that would be a banger though.
Yeah,
like when Matt Brown fought Cowboy. That was a banger. Someone had to go down.
Right.
Someone's gonna get fucked up.
I feel like that's gonna happen with that fight. Like if
I don't know. I mean, it could go.
If Conor trains correctly and fights smartly, which he doesn't do, that's probably his downfall, that he just doesn't fight smart.
Yeah, it's always been his style.
Yeah.
And
even when it's worked, even when it hasn't.
Yeah, like against Eddie Alvarez, he had his hands behind his back. He did that with Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you doing?
And I feel like he just didn't take the fight with Khabib seriously on a
Well, I knew that when he took a shot of Proper 12 at the press conference. I was like, what are you doing? Aren't you in the camp? It
was 2 shots probably, I would say, right?
Yeah, one with initially and then one with Dana. Yeah. Jeez, man.
So he was probably like drinking and throughout that camp, which I don't think he always was like that.
No,
I think this is something that I've seen him after the Floyd fight.
Yes,
the partying started after that. Probably a money thing. Like now that he has the money, he can be like, yo, I can.
There's a feeling of invincibility.
Yeah,
somewhat.
So he doesn't need to prove anything anymore. Like even if he retires today, like he's good. He can do it.
But then you get quite the opposite with Cain Velasquez, who, well, besides Stipe, the most accomplished heavyweight in UFC history, Cain has never been that type of dude. Yeah, he drinks. Yeah, he might party, but the guy is at AKA, man, he is the guy.
The main guy.
Everyone, like, if I can keep pace with this dude, and he's a heavyweight.
Yeah.
Everyone, DC's had many things to say about him. And DC basically said, hey, if I have the belt and I have to fight out, I'm not going to win.
Yeah.
He's going to beat me.
I think he even said that he would, if it came down to that, like if Kane was fighting for the belt, then DC would
he would go back to 205 or retire.
Or retire.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of what will happen now. I feel like either way, if Ngannou wins or if Cain Velasquez wins, they'll eventually fight Stipe for the title.
Man, you know what it is too, man? I love Stipe too, but I really would love to see a Grand Prix, a heavyweight Grand Prix in the UFC. That would be so much fun to watch, man. Because right now, I don't want to say that the belt's up in limbo. It's not. But what if DC fights again? He fights Brock, beats Brock. That's it. Rides into the sunset.
Yeah.
Then they'll go to an interim belt, and I'm like, no, fuck that. Do a Grand Prix,
even if it's just 4 guys.
Oh yeah. And you'll have your favorites, same guys. The Stipe. You'll have even Junior Dos Santos
could be in there.
Alistair Overeem will be in the mix, obviously, but
maybe even throw one of the some of these younger guys in just to mix it up a little. Those T-Bow,
exactly, and Tuivasa.
Tuivasa,
That, I mean, I don't like talking shit about my favorite weight class, which is the heavyweights. They're old, I get it, but nonetheless, man, I have a soft spot, because if I were right now, I'm 38, I'm not cut out to compete at all. But if I were to cut down to 265, that would be my weight class, even 245. Simply because I know what it's like to be a big guy. I know what it's like to want to have the endurance of a bantamweight.
Yeah,
you're
still a heavier
weight
person,
class. Yeah. So, well, who's your pick?
My pick is Cain Velasquez.
Via.
I would say
I think they're going 5.
It is it is the main event.
Will they go 5 over or under?
I think under. I want to say that if Cain really wants it and if he's really serious, if he's coming back, then he's going to go for the finish, and he could potentially TKO him or even choke him out.
Early too, like in the second
or third round. I want to say third. I'd go with third round.
You think Ngannou has the endurance now?
But if Ngannou has after his performance against Stipe, if he truly gets that fire back in him when he was on the rise, then it could be a bad matchup for Cain as well, where it's like, yo, you haven't been fighting for the longest time, and now you come in and this guy, big scary dude, punches you in the face. Like, you might be like, whoa, the game might pass you by then.
I actually think that Cain's already experienced that with a peaked Junior Dos Santos.
Yeah.
It can happen.
It can happen. And Junior Dos Santos, is a strong guy, but Ngannou,
he beat the lights out of Shane Carwin. Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah. And I think Ngannou could beat Dos Santos now.
Oh, he can. Yeah, definitely. He beat Curtis Blades twice.
That would turn into a boxing match, and then that would end badly for. But if Cain Velasquez kind of doesn't turn it into a boxing match, and just I don't think, again, the way he was against Stipe. Yeah. What was that, last year? Beginning of last year, right? Yeah. Last January. I don't think that he had, in a year, you can't train to the level of the best wrestler in the division, And
he is the best wrestler in the division.
No doubt. So I think if he sticks to his plan, which would be wrestling, I'm going to go with Cain.
He's going to press him against the cage, I have a feeling, and beat the
These days, I've kind of been off with my predictions. Like the last event, I thought TJ was going to win.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I knew for a fact he was going to lose, but not how he did.
I called the Amanda Nunes thing, but I thought that was going to be a decision. I thought if it goes down that route where it's just her versus Cyborg just beating on each other, that Amanda Nunes will come out on top. She'll probably get more strikes, or could even possibly.
I had a feeling she was going to.
She could even possibly take her down or something like that. But that was probably the most exciting fight I've seen in a long time.
I've never seen a woman's fight like that
She just can't,
since
man.
Cyborg and Gina
Yeah.
Carano, and that only lasted around too.
Yeah.
And that Cyborg Gina Carano fight
Cyborg
really good.
had nothing. She didn't even, I don't think she expected her to go
She
for
didn't
that
even
fast.
realize how she was.
Credit to Ronda, man. Like people talking shit about Ronda.
No, she fucking she never went down.
Yeah.
Even Eddie Bravo once was like,
Yeah.
dude, that shows how tough she is. Because
Yeah.
Amanda could fuck people up,
Yeah.
and Ronda
She
just
stayed in it at
stood
least,
up.
and
I'm
she
like,
was still kind of there
holy
even after.
shit,
Yeah.
and it's like, yeah, man. But anyway, Cain Velasquez is our pick.
Yeah,
I
Cain
hate to cut you
Velasquez
off
is-
short because we've passed an hour actually.
Oh wow. So you can't feel it, man. I thought I was.
One thing I do want to do for Kiyan, for those listening and watching, is plug in all your info in case. Just remember, Kiyan does do studio recordings. He does sound editing. He does anything relevant to music or even post-production. Any contact information and stuff that you want to shout out.
So mainly my Instagram is pretty private. Like I have a private account and I barely post on there, and it's more so for friends, and like, yeah, I'll post pictures in the studio and stuff like that, but it's not how I'm promoting myself.
exactly.
It's more personal use. So Facebook, definitely look me up on Facebook, Kiyan Ali.
Kiyan Ali. So it's Kiyan.
ALI. You know, I've tried to kind of make that where I advertise and post any recent work. I do have a bit of good news that I'm going to announce on there soon.
Awesome.
Something that was made official actually just yesterday, but I'm waiting to kind of make the social media announcement.
Perfect.
But yeah, the studios I work out of, and all my materials and contact information and stuff like that is on Facebook. So if you're interested, you know, you can look me up on Facebook.
Beautiful.
And I'm pretty responsive.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Of course, man. This is
appreciate
great.
you.
This is great.
I'll probably do another one with Kiyan because this was great. Maybe we'll touch base on your announcement that you're making, and
Right.
talk
Yeah.
about how
that
it's going.
should be cool. Some stuff coming with my roommate as well. Like he's a rapper, so he's always writing songs, and
Beautiful.
We've recorded a couple of songs, so
Awesome.
I'm sure something will come out of that very soon.
Perfect.
And
Thank you again.
Yeah,
appreciate
of course, man.
you.
Thank you for having
all
me,
those
Edgar.
watching and listening, thank you very much. Ed Namrok Podcast on Spotify, iTunes, and every major platform, especially the YouTube people. I know they keep asking me about that. Have a great weekend. Thanks for coming on again, Kiyan. See you guys.
Bye.